When you hear the words drowning, you would generally assume that there's water involved, right? And while you would be right most of the time, there have been quite a few crazy incidents where people drowned, but there was no water anywhere near them. Number 10. London beer flood. As far as dying goes, there are many ways to go, but if we could choose how it happens, drowning in alcohol would be pretty much on the top of the list, right? Unfortunately, for the residents of Tottenham Court Road in the parish of St. Giles, London, it actually did happen. The Mew & Company brewery had installed a massive 22-foot wooden fermentation tank, but on the 17th of October 1814, one of the iron rings that held the structure together snapped. A domino effect followed, which resulted in 610,000 liters of beer to spill out. To make matters worse, the force of the beer burst open other containers in the brewery, and terrifying 15-foot tidal wave of alcohol engulfed the streets, destroying many homes and claiming 8 lives. But there was an upside to it as well. The brewery was located near a densely populated slum, and the residents, instead of rushing away from the flooding beer, grabbed any container they could and helped themselves to some ale. Well, maybe we would have done the same, but in a weird twist of fate, some of them suffered and even died from overindulging in the alcohol. As they say, there are no free lunches, or beer in this case. Number 9. Ketchup. Ketchup has been used as fake blood for many pranks. But could ketchup actually cause death? Unfortunately, for 6 workers in the Akansha Food Products Unit in Lucknow, India, it did. A 20-foot tank, which housed vegetables for fermenting, was the cause of misery for the families, Usha, and the other workers. When she was trying to scoop up some of the fermented vegetables, her ladder slipped and she fell into the tank. The other workers who saw her fall immediately jumped in to save her. Sadly, Lady Luck was not smiling on them that day, and they were declared dead when they reached a nearby hospital. Police investigations found that the gases that were released during the fermentation of the liquids rendered them unconscious once they were inside the tank, and thus they were unable to save Usha or themselves. While one must admit the courage of the workers who jumped in to save her, death by ketchup does sound like an interesting crime mystery. Number 8. Paint. The Ford Transit van plant in Southampton, England, were trying to do a decent thing for the environment when they decided to recycle the paint from the factory's paint shop. So, they built a huge tank to collect the paint, but it ran into quite a few problems within a year of its construction. Quite often, it would overflow and one of the workers even fell into it when they were trying to clean it. Unfortunately, no lessons were learned from this, and a short while later, 30-year-old Christopher Shute observed that the tank was leaking again. But a lid had been removed, and because of the overflow of the paint, Shute was not able to observe that and fell inside the tank while he tried to fix the leak. While Shute frantically tried to pull himself out, and even his coworkers tried to help, the paint made everything very slippery, and Shute drowned in the paint. The accident could have been avoided if proper safety procedures had been followed, and Ford was fined £300,000 for the mistake. We really hope that they learned from their mistake this time around. Number 7. Pit toilet. Well, what can we say? Death stinks, and in this case, quite literally. Young Michael Comap was in his first year of primary school in a South African village when he went to the toilet. 2 hours later, his mother, Rosina, got a call that Michael had been missing for some time. When she frantically rushed to the school, the teachers told her that they had searched everywhere. But finally, Michael's friend came forward and told her that he had seen Michael fall into one of the pits in the toilet. On rushing there, she saw Michael's hand rising above the pool of waste. The fire department was alerted immediately, and they managed to pull out his body, but sadly, it was too late. The government was quick to install brand new lavatories in the schools in the area, but it was a little late for Michael. Hopefully, others take a lesson from this and safeguard their homes and toilets before shit hits the fan, quite literally. Number 6. Oil. Chips are one of the most favored snacks all over the world, but doctors advise against them because of the amount of oil they contain. As it turns out, that oil is not just dangerous, but fatal as well, as Donald Boone found out. Working in the Frito-Lay factory in Lubbock, Texas, Boone and a coworker were making repairs on the roof of a 15-foot oil tank on the 9th of February 2001. As luck would have had it, Boone fell through a 2-foot opening in the tank. His colleague noticed his fall and immediately raised a cry for help. The workers in the factory quickly opened the valve in the tank to release the oil, and paramedics rushed onto the scene barely 5 minutes after Boone fell through. However, even this prompt action was not able to save him, as he was declared dead in the hospital. It was later found that Boone had hit his head during his fall, which caused him to drown in oil. Later investigations found that there were safety violations in the factory, and Frito-Lay paid a sum of $57,000 in fines. Turns out, oil's not well when it doesn't end well. Number 5. Grease pit. Imagine a family outing to have ice cream in the afternoon. Doesn't sound dangerous at all, right? But the Andrews family of Alabama would like to differ. They were having ice cream on a regular afternoon, and their daughter Sadie, along with her sisters, was playing behind the shop. Unknown to her father, there was a 6-foot grease trap there which was covered with a lid. But when Sadie stepped on the lid, it flipped and closed behind her as she fell into the grease trap. As soon as the family realized she was missing, a frantic search was carried out, and she was found in the pit 10 minutes later. The ice cream shop workers and her family performed CPR, but sadly, Sadie was declared dead on arrival at the hospital. CCTV footage showed that her father had turned away just momentarily when Sadie fell into the trap. Well, maybe if he hadn't, Sadie could probably be a very different kind of grease monkey today. Number 4. Manure ponds. A drive by the countryside with all the fields and farms sounds charming, right? But have you noticed that stench that forces you to close your nose from time to time? It comes from the manure ponds where animal waste is stored to prevent it from contaminating the water supply and to manufacture fertilizers for organic farms. But for Ruperto Vasquez Carrera, pinching his nose wasn't really an option. He was driving along the Sunrise Organic Dairy Farm in a feed truck when he crashed into a manure pond. He managed to get out and tried swimming to safety, but was completely disoriented. Makes sense, right? After all, he was swimming in a load of animal shit. Turns out, manure is more deadly than we could ever imagine, as this was not an isolated incident. A worker in a different dairy farm met the same fate just 7 months after Ruperto. Well, as they say, shit happens. Number 3. Sulfuric acid. We've all cringed when movie villains threaten to dip the heroes in vats of acid. It is perhaps one of the most gruesome ways of dying that we can think of. Unfortunately, for Fernando Gonzalez, it became a reality. He was working in a late-night shift in the Coastal Circuits factory in Redwood City, where his job was to submerge circuit boards in sulfuric acid. But when he did not come home on time, his father, who worked in the same factory, went to find him and discovered his body in the vat containing sulfuric acid. Authorities believed that the fumes from the chemicals caused Fernando to lose consciousness, and he fell into the vat as a result of that. While there were many questions raised about the safety in Coastal Circuit, like why was he working alone or why didn't he have a face mask, Fernando's death was ruled as an accident. Will that theory pass the acid test? We wonder. Number 2. Chocolate. Death by chocolate might be one of the most popular forms of cakes, but who would have thought that it could be quite literal as well? In 2002, Yoni Cordone, an employee of the Carger Corporation, a candy factory in Pennsylvania, was working on the platform near a vat which contained about 1,200 gallons of molten chocolate. The vat was used to mix the chocolate, and no one actually saw Yoni fall into the vat. When his body was discovered later in the vat, people figured he slipped and fell into the vat. Considering that the other alternative is that Yoni probably couldn't resist the urge to taste that chocolate and jumped in, we think they might be correct. And as it happens, this is not the only case of chocolate drowning. In 2009, Vincent Smith II was also killed when he was hit by one of the blades that mixed the chocolate, causing him to fall in the vat. While his co-workers tried to pull him out, he was dead by the time they managed to do so. So the next time you want to scare the kids off chocolate, tell them that it's harmful to more than just their teeth. Number 1. Molasses. The name behind most of the sweeteners and flavoring in food, molasses, is the reason most foods are worth dying for. But when that becomes more than a figure of speech, it's time to start cutting down on the sugar. In the summer of 2016, Robert Herwire was working for the Agri-Technology in Michigan. Herwire, along with a colleague, was cleaning the 12-foot molasses tank, and when the level of molasses inside became too low to be pumped out, he entered the tank to adjust the valve. Although he used proper safety equipment and processes to do so, he stopped moving when he was climbing out and slipped under the molasses. When frantic measures to bring him out didn't work, the plant odor sawed through the tank, but it was too late for Herwire. who was definitely the sweetest person ever by that time. These were some instances when people drown in something other than water. So the next time you hear about someone drowning, do make sure it was water before blaming it on their swimming skills.